Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the KnifeCenter. And it's that time of the week where we take a look at the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves. Let's check them out. All right, before I get into the strictly new knives, I've actually got something here that's on sale for you. This is the SOG SEAL Pup Elite. Right now, marked down to just under 50 bucks, $49.95 for this really cool blade. These things have always been pretty good workhorses. You've got this tactical inspired blade here, obviously inspired by the old MACV SOG buoys from the Vietnam era, which of course SOG Knives is very famous for doing their renditions of. But this one, of course, a little bit shorter, coming in just under 5 inches. Typically for like a bushcraft knife, I like something in the 4-inch range, but 5 inches is still a good length. You still get a lot of capability without it being too big, where it starts to get unwieldy for the smaller stuff. But you've got enough reach to do some slightly bigger jobs too as well. Now the tang on this knife is full length and it's not a rat tail type of design. You can actually see the metal in the lanyard hole itself when you peek down in there. But with the overmolded handles, you have the benefit of not having to actually touch that bare steel, which could be helpful when things get like nice and chilly out. You're not going to have to put your hands on the cold steel, even though this is a SOG. But you get a good amount of traction with these. They're not a super smooth handle. They went for traction over outright smoothness, but it works very well. It's a nice shape. You got a little bit of a thumb ramp here on the back of the guard, and even on my slightly larger than average hands, these finger grooves aren't constricting. I don't feel like I'm getting scrunched up, which can be a danger in some finger grooved knives, but these are shallow enough and spaced well enough that they work well for me. Back to the blade for a second. Like I said, just under 5 inches. We've got AUS 8 stainless steel. Decent thickness there too. I'm going to say it's about 3/16 of an inch thick. So you're gonna get a fair amount of strength with that AUS 8 as well. Hollow ground. This make a great hunting knife as well, especially with that all that traction and the good amount of belly right there. And then on the back, they've actually notched the spine, and they say you can use it for notching or rasp types of tasks when you're in the outdoors. It's certainly not going to saw things, but it's kind of an in-between of a normally finished spine and a sawback spine. So that's kind of cool too. As far as the sheath goes, it's a simple nylon piece. We've got a retention strap here, hard insert, and then on the front, we've got a little space in this pouch for some survival goodies. You can throw some fire starters, first aid gear, fishing kit maybe, a few other things in there if you want. And as for carry, this will run through just a standard belt, but you've also got some MOLLE compatibility built into the sheath as well. But for just under 50 bucks, you're getting a lot of knife here, and it's gonna be a pretty versatile pattern. I've already mentioned stuff like hunting and camping, be a great knife out on the water thanks to the amount of grip you've got there. Plus at 50 bucks, it's not gonna be the end of the world if it happens to fall overboard. To say nothing, of course, of the tactical and law enforcement practicalities that this knife would be able to give you. Again, great price. All right, next up, we've got a Spyderco. This is the new Rockjumper. These come in at just over 86 bucks right now. Two versions. You've got the plain edge Wharncliffe blade here, as well as a fully serrated version, and the blade is just over 3 inches on these. Great utility shape, and essentially it's got all of those, some of those hallmark Spyderco features that you've probably heard me talk about a lot, just in a slightly new handle shape. Of course, this is a Sal Glesser design, but you've got the bidirectional FRN, 4-position pocket clip, backlock, and 1-hand opening with the spider hole, which means this is great for lefties or righties. You can carry it tip up, tip down on either side. Tons of grip because of that FRN. It's just one of those hard-working Spyderco lightweights. One of the things they've done though that's nice is, if you look at kind of the evolution of some of their knives over the years, the Delica had a little bit of space here around the pivot that was neither handle nor blade edge itself. To get around that, they used a lot of things like finger choils to give yourself some more grip here. But this one, similarly to the Polestar and the Tenacious, managed to get the handle all the way up, or the actual effective grippable part of the handle all the way up right behind the heel of the blade itself. So you're right there behind the edge, which means you've got a lot of fine control and there's no wasted space on this design, which is something I certainly really appreciate. But this is going to be a nice hard working knife. You get a definite full grip with this knife, and that aggressive Wharncliffe profile is going to be able to do some real heavy duty cutting jobs. You got VG10 stainless, full flat grind, really acute point, but still some beef behind it when you really need to throw down. All right, next up we've got a new version of the Ontario Wraith folder. This is the Ice Series Wraith. Comes in at just under 23 bucks. And as you can see, the defining feature here are these see-through handles. Not completely transparent, but almost. There's just a hint of frosted nature to it. But you can pretty much see all the mechanics inside this knife, which is really cool. You can see all the mechanism of the lockback working, the pivot, the blade when it's closed up, looks pretty neat. And then of course it's just a nice handy lockback when you aren't actually looking at it. 2.6-inch blade. You have a nice thin pocket clip here, and the only part that's sticking up is going to be part of that clear handle, so it doesn't exactly scream pocket knife, which can be a definite benefit to some. That clip is reversible too, so you can carry it on the left or the right. Again, we've got ambidextrous qualities built into this quite nicely, thanks to that back lock and the dual thumb studs as well, which open up the blade quite well. And what's cool about this whole package is it's kind of reminiscent of some of these Spec Plus Alpha knives from Ontario, definitely in terms of the handle shape, and even on the blade. You got a hint of recurve here along this drop point, tons of belly. I don't have the exact model name in front of me, but that definitely calls to mind one of those Spec Plus Alpha knives, almost to a T. Steel here is a little bit on the simpler side. It's 1.4116. Decent stainless. Again, for the price, you shouldn't expect a super steel, and you're certainly not going to get it, but it's going to be very easy to maintain. They make a lot of kitchen knives out of this steel. Not Ontario specifically, but this type of steel is often used in kitchen knives, so it is definitely very durable, so it can withstand that kind of environment, and it's going to carry through to this folder. All right, next up we've got two new pocket cleavers from CIVIVI. These are the Mastodon flippers. They're actually very similar to the Bull Mastiff series, which is pretty recently released. The only difference, or the biggest difference I should say, visually is the blade itself, rather than having the distinctive dual fullers that the Bull Mastiff had. Instead, you've got a full flat grind without those, and a kind of a wink to the traditional cleaver hole in the end of the blade here. There's one other major difference, and that comes on the inside of the handles, which I haven't held them up next to each other, but the handles look pretty identical to the Bull Mastiff. But on the inside, rather than ball bearings, you actually get bronze washers in the pivot. And don't be afraid, the action is still pretty good. A little bit slower, of course, than the ball bearings, but you have the advantage of the kind of the cleanliness of those brass washers in there. They're less susceptible to grit or grime. And if you're going to use a knife like this in the kitchen, I know some of you probably will be intending to do that since it is a cleaver type of shape. That's going to be a little bit better. These bronze washers, a better oven option for you. The large one comes in at just under 55 bucks and almost 4 inches of steel, 9 CR18 MOV, which is roughly analogous to 440C. So you're getting some decent performance there. Nice stone-washed finish, and the G10 on the handle, liner lock, reversible deep carry pocket clip, all those things that pretty much every CIVIVI design out there has that you would expect, it's got. And the G10 on the larger versions has a little bit of a rougher texture. I shouldn't say rougher, it's certainly finely done, but a wider, more grippy texture than the smaller versions that have a finer pattern. Right now there's 3 colors on both of these knives. You got that OD green that I just showed you, there's black, and there's also red, which you can see on this small one here. These come in just under 48 bucks, blade length just under 3 inches, same specs otherwise. You've got the same steel and finish, the washers in the pivot, liner lock, everything you like. And I especially like this small version in the red. There's just something about it that I really enjoy. But either one that you choose, again, this is kind of similar to that Rockjumper. This is going to be a hard working style of knife. Definitely, and you can pull off some aggressive and real strong types of cuts with a blade shape like this, and it's just ready to go. All right, next up we've got a few new designs from Knife Company, who of course is the parent to CIVIVI. The first is a new Ferrum Forge collaboration. This is the Minax, and this particular one I'm holding right here comes in at $263.50 right now. There's a couple of different colors available. This is the antique bronze. Antique bronze titanium handles. So you've got sort of a black patinaed texture, but some of the bronze is kind of peeking out on some of the high spots. So it has kind of a antique look, as you would expect. There's some really cool milling on the handle too. You've got this recessed bit here with a grid-like pattern and a few cutouts here. They add some grip, but they look really cool as well. You've got ball bearings in the pivot, as you'd probably expect. Single position pocket clip on this one. It is right side tip up only, but when you pull it out of the pocket, that blade's gonna fire right open. CPM 20 CV blade steel here, so you've got a ton of edge retention, nice heavy stone-washed finish, and almost 3.5 inches of length. So it looks cool, but it's still ready to work as well. If you don't like to flip it, you've also got the nice cutout here in the blade itself, so you can do that middle finger flick if you want to get a little bit fancier. But it's just a really cool, stylish piece, and I think it definitely stands out among some of the things I've got on the table right now. Similar to a lot of the Ferrum Forge collabs we've seen with WE so far, you've got, well, for a lot of other companies for that matter, you've got a nice flat grind on this knife, a bit of a finger choil there. You can choke up, get a little more control. Tons of belly on this design. I think it's going to make a really nice slicer. All right, next new design from WE is called the Gava. It's a Rafal Brezki design, and this one comes in at just under 236 right now. Now initially I wasn't really drawn to this based on the pictures, but when I got this in hand, I've definitely warmed up to it, and more than just a little bit. I actually really like it. First thing I noticed was the weight. It's not an ultralight knife, but for a full titanium handled knife, we're under 4 ounces here. And it feels like it's less, I gotta be honest. It's just nicely balanced. There's some nice milled pockets on the inside of the titanium that remove some weight. So if you're used to a lot of titanium frame lock flippers, you're kind of used to the weight you might expect when you pick it up, and it's just absent here, but in a good way. Now the outline of the handle itself is fairly simple, but they have spiced it up with some nice faceting and machining on there. But really this is a no-nonsense knife despite the kind of nice details. It's just a simple drop point, 3¼ inches, 20 CV blade steel, but the handle's very effective for actually holding the knife. You've got a nice secure grip. And the blade steel on this is really nice and thin. You're going to be able to slice very nicely with this blade. 20 CV steel again, like I mentioned. Nice heavy stone-washed finish as well, so it's gonna wear nicely as you use it. Single position pocket clip again. Titanium frame lock. It's a flipper. Not a whole lot of flipper tab sticking out when it's closed up. Not a whole lot of blade itself at all actually sticking out when it's closed up. But you got really good action. But I'm just really enjoying what they've done with this design. It's no nonsense, like I said, it's gonna work, and I'm really liking that they went with an appropriately thin blade stock that's just gonna be great for everyday carry. All right, next up I've got 3 new production slip joints from Serge Panchenko. It's the production slip joint V3, and there's 3 different versions of it as well. This first one is about 150 bucks, 2¾ inch blade, straight backed of M390 steel, and a stonewashed titanium frame to match it. And this truly has a really heavy stonewash. It's almost like the Rick Hinderer working finish in terms of how aggressive it is, but I really like it, especially for a slip joint like this that might be hanging out in your pocket. We do have a pocket clip though, so it's not gonna be hanging out free floating in your pocket. It's gonna make it a little easier to access. But it is a slip joint, as I mentioned. This is not one of the new dual detent types of designs we're seeing. This is a more time-proven slip joint. Good walk and talk on this titanium model. Of course, you've got that nice half stop there, and it snaps shut quite well. I really like the blade or the handle shape on these knives. You've got a little bit of a swell here at the back. Reminds me almost of some of the trapper designs out there, but you can get a good amount of grip on it. Nice edge geometry with the flat grind and the thin edge, and of course that great steel to get work done. We've also got a Wharncliffe bladed version, again 2¾ of M390. Excellent flat grind with thin edge, but black G10 and a slightly different handle shape than that titanium version. Now the action on this particular one is a little bit lighter than that titanium one, but you still got that nice half stop, and it's still very satisfying to open. Not sure if that's due to the model in general or just some variance between them, but it's still a really cool design. If you'd rather have something like that double detent design, the Zero Tolerance 235, I think it is, has a very similar blade shape to this, so you can always check that out too. And last but not least, we've got a cleaver blade shape. Same length and specs, just orange G10 in this case, and the handle shape goes back to the same as that titanium version. Both of these G10 models are a little bit cheaper at $135. But the blade shape on this one is I think, especially really cool. Not something you see too often at all on a slip joint, so there's that going for it. And you've got a clean, full flat grind on here, no nail nick like the other 2 models, which visually kind of cleans things up a little bit and looks quite nice. Walk and talk, a little bit more like the titanium version at first, and then despite the nail nick, still plenty to grab on there and open the blade. All right, next up I've got 2 new designs from Jake Hoback. This first one is called the Sliver, comes in just under 500 bucks, and this is an American-made knife. And it kind of takes the aesthetics of his Quayback flipper, which is a much larger knife, shrinks it down, thins it out, makes it a little bit more swoopy, but you've still got a really cool Quaken-inspired shape with this Sliver. There's a few different colors. This is the stone-washed bronze version here. 20 CV blade steel on this one, just like a couple of the other things we've looked at so far. 3¼ inches long, decently thin. It's not a super thin blade, but because it's so narrow, there is going to be a good amount of agility built in, and I love the way this knife closes up. The blade nestles into that handle shape very nicely. There's not a lot sticking out, nice and streamlined, and the same is true with that flipper tab as well. There's actually nothing sticking out back. It kind of is sticking up a little bit, but he really did take away just about as much as he possibly could. I don't know if it was for economy of materials, but certainly economy of design, because the little bit of the cutout here revealing that tiny flipper tab shows you the locking interface or the locking surface is actually right there on the part you're flipping. So there's no wasted space there at all, but it still flips open quite well thanks to that placement. Really satisfying to open. Ball bearings in the pivot. We've got a closed backspacer on this knife, which adds a little bit of weight, and that actually goes on this design this kind of narrow, gives it a little bit more of a feeling of strength than a barrel spacer type of construction might have. It's a pretty cool design. We've actually got another from him as well. This one is called the Sumo, and this one comes in about $550. Again, made in America, and again, a really cool style piece. I think this one actually goes a little bit more towards the style piece than the actual practical, and that comes down to the placement of a few things. I'm not a huge fan of where this pocket clip is, especially when holding the knife, but I do love the way that a lot of the lines kind of intersect and meet up together. This knife has a 3¼ or 3⅛ inch blade, 20 CV, but it's got almost a sheep's foot style of shape to it. Actually reminds me a little bit of the ZT456, that Dmitry Sinkovich design, which is another option if you don't have the $550 burning a hole in your pocket. This one, however, is not a frame lock. This is a button lock, and it is also a flipper. But what's kind of cool about this blade shape and the way the button lock works is you can close it with basically just pressing the button and holding it at the right angle. You don't even have to put some wrist action into it. In fact, the few times I have, it's actually really easy to get it to pop back out. So just push the button. It still popped out a little bit, but that's okay. Opening methods on this knife, there are plenty going on. You've got that button lock that you can hold down and flick it open if you like. You've also got a really subtle flipper tab here. It's almost vestigial, so to speak. But you can get in there. I do need a little bit of wrist action, and do watch out for the little piece here behind, because if you pull back too aggressively, this decorative backspacer piece might pinch you a little bit. But in addition to that, we've got two thumb opening methods. You've got these thumb studs here, which are this triangular shape bolted into each side, but you've also got this, this milled down section of the blade that you can also use as a thumb opener. So there's definitely a lot of fidget factor going on with this, but I think more than anything, this is going to be a great collector's piece. All right, we're going to keep the train rolling with some more high-end stuff. To end this video, we've got 5 new Alliance Designs variants. If you've seen any of the Alliance stuff so far, you know it's built very well. Pardon me, got a little bit of dust right there. But we've got a new Gemini, a new variant of the Gemini from Ray Laconico. This one about $520 right now. Now you can certainly get this in a cheaper version with G10 handles and the thumb studs, but there's also the Kaiser Gemini, was based on the original Laconico Jasmine. That one has a flipper tab, but this one is really nice, and the defining feature here are these milled titanium or sculpted titanium handles that have these Chad Nichols dark tie inlays. At first I thought they were Mokutai, but they're actually not. They actually, to me, look a little bit like abalone, but it is of course not a natural material, so you don't have to worry about the longevity of it. It's just got a really nice look to it. Now the backspacer and the pocket clip are also that same dark tie, Chad Nichols dark tie, floating backspacer, which is pretty cool. And this is essentially, in my mind, I've always thought of the Jasmine as sort of Laconico's answer to the Sebenza. It's just a simple pattern, but nicely executed. good proportions, classically done. It's just ready to work. You've got an RWL 34 blade, 3 1/8 of an inch here. Decently thick, but you've still got a full flat grind, so it's not going to act too much like a wedge when you go to cut. Caged ceramic bearings to keep the action free flowing, even though it is just a flipper. Or sorry, even though it doesn't have a flipper, it is just thumb studs. You can still pop that blade open quite nicely. And another thing is kind of similar to a Chris Reeve knife. They don't use a stainless steel insert on the end of the lock bar. The Reeve knives, of course, the newest versions use a ceramic ball, but here we've actually got a carbidized lock face to increase the hardness of that titanium there, so it's not going to wear down quickly like some older titanium knives might against a heat-treated blade. It's not the only Ray Laconico design to show you today. Another new variant of the Angry Baby Bear Flipper. Great name for this knife. These come in at $400. We've got a 3-inch blade of RWL 34, and this one has just as premium of feel as that Jasmine right there. You've got a contoured PVD-coated titanium frame with these carbon fiber inlays on both sides. Nice full inlay on each side. So even though it's not a liner lock, you kind of get the benefit aesthetically of some liner locks where they can bring that fancy material all the way down the back face of the knife. This one is a flipper, as you can see, with a nice accessible tab there. Milled pocket clip, no special titanium on this one. It's just PVD coated titanium. But it flips open quite nicely, and I really like the finish on this. It's a nice, almost hand-rubbed looking finish. In fact, they may have actually hand-rubbed it. I don't know for sure, but you've got that nice custom feeling quality to the finish. The only part that really looks like a machine finish is the tip of that Tonto right there. All right, next is actually, I don't think this is a new variant. I think this is actually the first Alliance design release of the Walter Randolph Deimos flipper, coming in at $365. Specs are pretty much like any other high-end titanium frame lock flipper these days, with one notable exception. You've got black linen micarta inlays on both sides of the knife. I really appreciate linen micartas. It's maybe not my favorite micarta. I would probably reserve that for paper micarta, but it is certainly a nice difference from canvas micartas on these higher end knives, which we do see. I've actually got one to look at here in a second, which I do still like, don't get me wrong. But black linen certainly just has kind of a classy feel on a knife like this. Blade steel is M390, 3 1/4 inches, and we've got a two-tone finish here. We've got horizontal grinds, or a horizontal finish on the flats, but the ground portions actually has what they're calling a frosted finish. It's a really fine type of finish, not quite, technically I guess it's a satin, but you don't see any grain structure built into it, so it's really nicely done. The handles are a little bit on the thinner side, and I like that. Stonewashed titanium for the bulk of it, which comes through in the bolsters right here. Frame lock, or some people would call that a bolster lock. I still like to call it a frame lock. Ball bearings in the pivot, yes, you got them. Nice flipping action, yes, you've got that too. Just another really cool design from Alliance. All right, next up is another variant of the Bangarang design from Matthew Christensen. This one is $340, and this is a canvas micarta handled knife. I promised you I had one. Both sides, this is a liner lock. This is not a frame lock, so you get that nice micarta with full coverage on either side. Milled pocket clip for the right, but this has a very distinctive blade shape, as you can see. Again, RWL 34, we've seen that on a couple of these knives so far. 3 1/8 of an inch, we've also seen that dimension on a couple of knives so far. But it's got a really cool, kind of a bulldoggy type of attitude, especially compared to some of these more sleeker or more refined looking designs. But there's a little bit of offset or a little bit of drop to the edge, combined with a nice continuous belly means this would be good for work on a cutting board or any other kind of surface where you're scoring or drawing the knife. And you still get a good amount of power to this blade. It's not necessarily going to be like a cleaver in that it's going to be harder for it to slip out of longer slicing cuts. You do have a fair amount of upsweep to the belly, but I still feel like there's a ton of power here. And that certainly is backed up by that micarta for the grip. It feels like a nice rugged working knife. Micarta, of course, with a matte texture like this, feels a little bit grippy. And then when it gets wet, you're actually gonna find that it'll feel a little bit tackier to the touch until it dries out again. So you've got that as sort of a bonus feature built in. No flipper here again, but the action is still good. But take a look at that, how it folds up too. Despite that really kind of broad and big profile when it's open folds up nice and neatly. But when you're ready to, you take it out of your pocket, pop it open on those thumb studs, and away you go. All right, one last one from Alliance. This is a Jeremy Marsh design. It's called the Chisel for $340 right now. And there's actually a few other versions that we've had previously, but this is the new one right now. This is another one I think is probably more of a collector's piece and more of a display piece. It's certainly capable, don't get me wrong, but I think they went more for the artistic side of things. There are a few little jutting corners that get in the way a little bit when you're trying to use the knife, but for a lighter duty gentleman's knife, it's probably not going to be a problem. Blade length M390, 3¼ inches. Hollow grind on this as opposed to the flats on the ones we've seen so far. Or no, I take that back. Yeah, the second Laconico we looked at actually had a hollow grind as well. We've also got a crown spine on this one. Makes that part at least nice and comfortable. Adds a little bit of visual flair as well. We've got carbon fiber for the handles, and the liners on this, including the liner lock, are actually titanium, and they've got a bronze anodized coloration to them, which that bronze look against carbon fiber is always, always super nice. Folded up, you can see this is a tip down only carry knife, which some of you may appreciate. I know there's a faction out there that really hates a tip up knife, so this is definitely an option for you. But I know for some folks, when they pull it out, it's a little bit easier to access that blade with that type of orientation, but that's neither here nor there. You've still got great action. All right, that's all I've got to show you this week. Make sure to leave your comments down below. Let us know what you liked best. If you want to get your hands on any of these, we will leave links in the description that'll take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program while you're there, because if you're going to spend one of your money on one of these nice knives, you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next one. Before I go, I just wanted to throw a reminder out there. I hope you've been watching our Knife AQ segment that's been posting over the weekends. If you want to have a chance to get one of your questions answered, make sure to leave it in the comments section, and we might be able to get that taken care of for you. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time.